Thanks for joining us today on your Vulcan 7 members only webinar series. As you know, each month we do a webinar that is targeted to helping our Vulcan 7 members experience success and really achieve the goals that they're looking for. And as I just mentioned, and I'm going to keep mentioning, anytime you have recommendations or need help with anything or have suggestions on webinars that can help you have a better business or use Vulcan 7 better, please email us at sales@vulcan7.com and put webinar topics in the subject so that we can be giving you and delivering you information that you're looking for. Again, this topic came up multiple times in a couple of different search groups online, and so we felt like it was a relevant topic for Vulcan 7 to deliver, and we just happen to know Sarah Jahn and how amazing she is with ISAs. So we wanted to have her on. Anybody that has questions about when you're going to get a copy of this or if it's being recorded, it is being recorded. You will get a copy of this tomorrow in your email, okay? And I'm going to probably mention that a couple times because that's always the #1 question that we get throughout the whole thing. So without further ado, we're going to do our ISA webinar training, and I would like to introduce Sarah Jahn. Sarah, why don't you introduce yourself to the group? Tell us a little bit about your experience in real estate and what led you to this webinar today.
Great, thanks, Amy. So my real estate experience started on Tim Heil's team. I came on the team 3.5 years ago or so as the lead coordinator, and quickly decided to revamp pretty much all of our systems for ISAs. And once we really got things rocking and rolling with that, I think we were able to increase production from inbound leads or increase conversion by about 200% within 6 months. Which was fantastic, but even better than that was that we were able to cut our lead spend by almost 30%, which was really cool. So it was all about fixing those conversion systems and really making sure that the team was rocking and rolling. And then after that, I took over the ISA department there at the Heil Group, and then continued on to open Phone Animal, which many of you may have heard of, which is a lead generation company for real estate agents. We've prospected for agents all over the country, actually including internationally, if you want to count Canada. And then we've probably sourced close to 50,000 seller nurtures in the last 2 years.
Wow.
Which is pretty cool. So I've ran a team at Phone Animal of over 100 ISAs. We recently, at the end of the year, offshored most of our team to the Philippines. So now most of that is virtual, which has been a whole new adventure and an exciting one at that. So so that's really the bulk of my experience is running Phone Animal, and then also running our lead generation department at Heil Group. And now I'm an ISA coach. So we have a coaching program through MAPS that we started 1.5 years ago almost now, and we've got about 80 clients that participate in that group coaching program. It's a really cool program. If you'd like to learn more, I'm happy to share that with you as well.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I'm sure that after doing this webinar, you're going to tell us everything that you know, and we're going to realize that we need to know more, and then you're going to have a coaching program for us, right? Isn't that the way it works?
Yeah, a plug.
Perfect. Well, Sarah, what you had promised the people that are watching are that you're going to talk about some models that would work. Also talk about how to hire, train, hold them accountable, retain them, all of that. So you're just basically going to give us the whole package, and then probably a couple of resources along the way. So, I would love for you to go ahead and share your screen, show us what you've got. Feel free to just get involved. And then the other thing I wanted to do was offer anyone on the webinar, if you have questions during the process, please feel free to post those in the chat. That is where we'll be taking questions, and I'll be monitoring those as we go. So I believe we can see your screen, and you can get started.
All right. Excellent. Let me see if I can make it move forward. Okay. All right. Can everybody see the overview? Yeah. Can you see it, Amy?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. All right. So I'm going to go over a few things today. One of the most common questions that we get is, when do I hire an ISA or OSA to bring onto my team? That's probably one of the most common questions that we get. And so I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about that. We're going to go through 2 ISA models, a traditional model and then a junior agent model, which is a little bit newer that people are experimenting with. There's a lot still to learn about that model, and it's already had some really great success with a lot of the teams that I'm working with, including the Heil Group. And then how to recruit ISAs, OSAs, where to find them, what process to take them through, what you're looking for in your candidates. And then we're going to talk about a little bit about training, accountability, and retention, how to really keep your ISAs super engaged and super happy, which is really important because they are the lifeblood of your business. When you start to talk about leveraging lead generation, that's a huge piece of your business to leverage, and you have to be really trusting of the person that you bring in, and you also need to make sure that you don't set it and forget it, which is, I think, happens a lot with ISAs, which we want to avoid. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Okay, so first question, when do I bring on an ISA? So what we find is the best time typically, Tim's been teaching, really it should be your first or second hire. So an executive assistant is probably your first hire. And then beyond that, leveraging lead generation is typically a really good next step after you've brought on an EA. Maybe sometimes before, depending on which side of the business you prefer, which side is your strongest suit. But typically what we're looking for is that you're closing 3 to 4 deals a month. Most agents find that they start to need that leverage and that they're ready for that leverage when they're at about the $8 million to $10 million mark in volume per year. When to not hire an ISA, I thought this was important to add, is when you first get started. If you have more time than you have money, then you need to do your prospecting yourself. And also, really straightforwardly, if I can be frank, prospecting can be a drag sometimes. It can be, and it's not always easy to do. Yet it's really best if when you do bring on that ISA, you've done the job to some extent. You are aware of what it takes to be successful in the role, and you put yourself out there just like you're going to be asking your ISA to do when they come on. So I know a lot of people that are really great at working their sphere, and they want to bring someone in to work, the harder stuff, right? The more challenging conversations like FSBOs and expireds, and yet they've never put themselves in that position to understand really what it takes to be successful. So one thing that I always recommend is, if you're not doing prospecting at any level and you're bringing on an ISA, coaching is going to be key. So if you've never done it yourself, you definitely want to have help in hiring someone to help you through that process, or test it out yourself first and really get used to the conversations and used to those scripts so that you can coach effectively.
That's a great suggestion when you said if you have more time than money, you should be doing it. And it kind of goes back to that concept of, if you're going to own a restaurant, you should do all the jobs so that you understand the challenges of each, right?
Yeah, and you don't have to do it forever, but just have an understanding of what that person's going to be going through, because it'll help you in hiring. It'll help you pick the right person. If you've done the job and you know what it takes, you'll avoid some mistakes in hiring if you have a really clear understanding of it too.
Great.
Okay, so that's number one question I get. Second question I get is, okay, now that I know I need to hire an ISA, tell me what that's supposed to look like. I've heard different things, I've heard different models, and there's a ton of different ways to structure compensation and just the job role in general. One of the most common ways that we find is our traditional model, right? This is kind of the tested and tried and true way to go about hiring someone. So this model is typically a full-time or potentially a part-time inside sales agent. They could do inbound or outbound depending on what kind of work you need them to do, right? So inbound would be inbound leads. Outbound will be, more active, proactive prospecting, like calling around neighborhoods or expireds or FSBOs, those types of leads. A little bit different of a personality profile for each of those, which we can talk more about. But as far as the overall structure of the role, this is a paid employee, right? This is a W-2 tax employee, right? So some people try to avoid that by labeling this as a 1099 contract employee. I highly recommend that if you're going to hire someone in this traditional type role and you want to do it in a 1099, it can be done. Just you're going to have to maybe seek some legal counsel on exactly how you're going to need to structure the role. What I find is that most of the time, though, this is a W-2 employee. You're going to tell them where to be, what to call, what scripts to use, what hours they work, those types of things. So it really is a W-2 employee most of the time when you hire in this model. So make sure you're checking that out if you're going to try to avoid paying the taxes and such on the bill. Some people do try to do that. Now, obviously, it's a paid employee on your team. They're going to be, PTO, benefits, all of those types of things will help make you competitive in the market, because inside sales isn't just with real estate. You're going to be competing against not just other real estate agents for these types of employees, but you're going to be competing against technology companies, and you're going to be competing against other sales companies for business to business or consumer products. So it's not just real estate agents that you're competing with. So you want to make sure that your benefit package is going to be, substantial when it comes to your competition. So understanding what jobs are out there in your market and understanding what's competitive with those packages is also an important piece. Now, most people follow a paid base, right? A base salary plus commission on the back end, or throughout the process. So we'll talk about those two options. So typically, you're looking at a $2,000 to a $2,500 base per month. That's typically a pretty competitive salary with ISAs as far as the base goes. And then you're looking at probably 5 to 10% of commission on the back end. Now, you can structure that a couple of ways. First would be look at your average price points. So most of the time, I find that if you're at the $200,000 to $250,000 average price point in your market, that 5% is probably fine. It's probably fine to go with a 5% commission on the back end if you're at that price point. If you're under that price point, that average price point in your market, you might be looking at closer to a 10% commission on the back end to make your salary, your total income package competitive in the marketplace. So you'll want to be aware of what your average price point is. That's important. Now, there are some creative compensation structures that I've seen in the industry with some of my clients that are kind of cool. So one would be a tiered structure. A tiered structure would be simply on the commission on the back end, right? You would be looking at 5% for the first so many deals that they do, and then they'll hit different tiers where that commission structure will go up. So this is a nice incentive to get them closing more and more deals, right, where they continue to feel incentivized to hit those bigger numbers. And again, you want to make your salary competitive. Usually we find that if you can get your total income package to between, say, 60 and 80,000 for someone who's really rocking and rolling, knocking it out of the park, meeting your expectations, that's probably where you want to land as far as what your overall compensation will be in most markets. Now, if you're in like San Diego or New York City, you might want to vary that a little bit, but that's going to also work on your average price points as well. It should all even out. Now, the process bonus, which is something I mentioned, sometimes ISAs, at least when they start, aren't licensed, and sometimes ISAs don't get licensed. Now, I would always recommend having your ISA licensed, going through the entire process of making sure that everything's legitimate with your board of realtors and making sure that you're following all the rules. Sometimes, though, that doesn't happen right away, and so if you can't put them on the green sheet because they're not licensed, then some people will pay out like a sales bonus or a bonus throughout the process. So I call that a process bonus-based compensation structure. So usually what that looks like is throughout different steps of the sales process, you reward them in like a spiff. So if they have an appointment gone on, they get $20. I think I put $20 here for an appointment gone on it. A taken contract would be $50, and then if that also goes under contract, that would be $100. If it closes, they'll get another bonus for the close as well. And so this can be a way to just not have to put them on the green sheet. It can also be a nice way to get your ISA rewarded a little bit quicker for their work, because it can take a really long time. As we know, the tail on real estate can be a while, especially if you are having this person start out circle prospecting where you're gathering nurtures. That's their whole job, is to get nurtures, and then they have leads to follow up with in their pipeline, but maybe not sales right away, right? They might not have a whole lot of appointments right off the bat. If you have them, circle prospecting or calling just listed, just solds, they might not have appointments. The whole goal there would be nurtures. And so if especially in that situation, it might be a good idea to start having some bonuses built in along the way so that you keep them motivated and incentivized throughout the process. Does that make sense?
It does. Hey, Sarah, I've got a couple questions that came in, and I think they're pretty relevant.
Yeah.
One question was on some of the bonus, the 5 and 10% when a deal closes. The question is, what if you're over that price point? Like, say your average is $600,000, would you pay less?
So it depends. Again, I would go back to where you're trying to get them salary-wise. So find out what's competitive in your market for an ISA type role, right? So maybe throw in your application, right? Throw in an application in Indeed for an inside sales role, or a few of them, and get some information from the employers that are hiring at that level of what the average income is for those types of roles. So do some market research on what's going to be competitive, and then work backwards, right? So you're like, okay, if you hit these goals that I'm setting for, what my expectations are for how well you're going to do in this role, where's that going to land on the continuum of what your overall income package would be? And of course, you want to count, your PTO, your benefits package, all of those things included, but you kind of want to work backwards, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. One more question regarding the process bonuses. The question is it 100% total if it goes under contract, or $170 if an appointment is made, a contract is taken, and then it goes under contract?
So it's through each piece. So it accumulates. Yep.
Okay, great. And that's just really to reward them for doing the things that you want them to do, right?
Right. And so I would avoid paying for appointments set, right? Because what that does is it can incentivize them sometimes to set appointments that really aren't great, right? So the first process bonus that I would offer would be that appointment gone on. Let's actually get the agent on the appointment.
And the person shows up for the appointment, and it's an official appointment. That makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
All right, I think we're good to go on questions.
Okay, perfect. Those are great questions, guys. All right. So,
again, one more thing. If you guys have questions, make sure to put them in the chat and not the questions. Just any questions, put them in the chat. Thank you. So sorry, Sarah.
That's okay. Okay, so let's move on to ISA Model 2. So this is going to look like a junior agent model. That's what we call it. And so this is going to be really good for someone who is in need of lead generation, and also looking to grow their agent team. This can be a very, very powerful way to bring agents on board who come up in the industry with the prospecting mindset. So I find a lot of times people that join, say, our ISA program through MAPS, what happens is they join the program, they get really excited about prospecting. They start introducing accountability and a culture of accountability around prospecting with their agent team, and then they lose like half their agent team. Their agent team is like, no, this is not what I signed up for. Get me out of here, right? And so that can happen. You know, when you start to revamp your culture to instead of, what have you done for me lately, to you're going to go out and kill what you eat. That can be a shock to some agents. So a lot of people use this to start rebuilding their agent team with people who come up through this junior agent model where prospecting is ingrained right from the beginning. So if you're looking to grow your agent team, or you're looking to rebuild your agent team with people who have that kind of mindset, this is a really great way to do it. And it's a great way to get leads, really high quality leads as well at the same time. So this is a very different type of individual that you're looking for. Not necessarily a different type of individual. It's a totally different employment model, because this is a 1099 contractor. This person's going to become an agent. In other words, you want someone who's really an intrapreneur, right? And that, not entrepreneur, but intrapreneur. Someone who's going to take look at your business and say, I can build a business within your business. So you're looking for someone of that capacity, right? So you're going to treat them very differently. This person needs to be really, really self-driven. Basically, you're going to give them a list of things that need to be accomplished in order for them to graduate out of this junior agent training program that they're going to be a part of. And you're going to let them direct it, right? You're going to let them schedule the things that need to be scheduled with senior agents. You're going to let them decide if they want to have one-on-ones with you. You're going to let them decide how quickly they want to get their license and move through this process. When people tell me, oh, I've got this junior agent and I'm really having to pull him along and push him along, that's a red flag for me, because this person's going to be an agent on your team who's going to be building a business within your business. And so you really want people to have that entrepreneurial mindset when you bring these people in.
Question for you. So once they do become licensed, are they still going to continue this ISA role, or do they then shift into an agent focus?
So it totally depends on where they are in the process of everything else that is required in order to graduate out of the role. So I'll go through some of those. So basically, what we do typically with the junior agent program is they start by strictly circle prospecting. So they're doing the dirty work that really nobody else wants to do, right? This is the hard, labor-intensive work. And again, this is a way to get them ingrained with that prospecting-based culture and really understanding what it takes to be successful at a high level with prospecting. So they're doing circle prospecting, neighborhood calling, those types of leads. Now, you can introduce other scripts. I suggest one at a time as they graduate out of, so they test out of those scripts at each level. So typically this takes about 3 to 6 months. We pay these people per lead that they generate. And so it's also important, because you're paying per lead that is generated by them, that you're inspecting the quality, right? So that you're either doing it yourself, you're having somebody on your team do it, or you're hiring a virtual assistant or something of that nature to listen in to these nurture calls to make sure that you're getting what you pay for. We've had situations, and even people that we thought we could trust, that ended up putting stuff into the pipeline that really wasn't high quality. So you want to make sure that you're inspecting your results when you're incentivizing this way, because anytime you set up an incentive program, people will game the system. It's just kind of part of the deal. So it typically takes an agent or a junior agent 3 to 6 months to graduate out of our program. If it takes longer than 6 months, red flag, this is an issue, right? Again, they want to be really self-driven to get through this program. So typically they get licensed during this time. They're generating 500. You can set that number at whatever, makes sense for you and your team. But for our team, it was 500 leads generated for our team before they could graduate out of the program. So that's roughly 80 leads per month if they can make by the 6-month mark. Now, there are times that we've made exceptions with that if they have really gone above and beyond on all of the different categories, and it's only been 3 or 4 months, right? If they're really showing progress and making improvement, and they're still hitting that 80 to 100 nurtures per month mark, we've made exceptions before they hit that 500 lead mark. But that's also depending on what your team needs. If your team needs those leads, then it may be something that's a hard and fast rule for you. Now, testing out of all the scripts with the lead agent. So we have a lead agent on our team who will take these people through all of the different scripts that they're going to need to know as an agent. So the expired script, the FSBO script, your buyer prospecting scripts, and then of course your buyer and listing presentation. So those are big test out moments for our team. They have to memorize and internalize those scripts because we want to make sure our agents are consistent. When we're sending out multiple agents, we want to make sure that agent A and agent B are delivering the same message, that they're on point with the message, which is really important to our team because it's just it's a quality issue, right? So testing out of the buyer and listing presentations, shadowing showings, and shadowing buyer and listing consultation. So they have to shadow a certain number of showings and shadow a certain number of consultations. Typically, it's like 3 of each, sellers and buyers, before they can graduate. They can pass that piece of the puzzle. And then they do 2 open houses per month. Sometimes they do more because they start to build their own pipeline. And all of the leads that they generate for the team, they're leads that are being generated for the team. They're not necessarily building their own pipelines up. That's an important piece to remember too. Another piece that helps you build the right kind of culture on your agent team when you're bringing people up through this model is that they understand that the leads that the team is paying for are the team's leads, and they don't just belong to that particular agent. I know that there's a lot of people on this call that are probably struggling with agents who feel like, well, these are my leads, when in fact the team has generated those leads, the team's paid for those leads, and they have a real problem with respecting those leads and treating them, you know, with
What's the best way to set that up? Is that a contract, something in writing?
Yeah, so typically, you know, we have the expectations laid out, and we'll, you know, we'll present them with these are the expectations for the role. This is how you graduate, and you know, they'll sign on the dotted line saying, yes, I agree to this, and the leads are for the team. The leads go to a shared hopper where our agents are able to call out of, which is kind of an important piece on our team that we you know, find is a really good way to work our shared team leads, is out of that hopper system, so that no one person feels like these are just my leads. So that's an important piece that we do as well.
Okay. Couple quick questions. How long is the contract that you have them sign? Is it, you know, 6 months and then it goes month to month, or is it 2 years? You know.
Yeah. So we don't put a time commitment on it. Ours is very much, it's not, nothing on our team is longevity based. It's all about the results. So it's, did you hit this standard? Did you hit, you know, these requirements? So it's all requirement based and not time based. That's, I think, a really important difference in our contracts versus maybe some other.
Absolutely. It's performance really based.
Absolutely.
I had a couple of other ones. Are you paying the bonuses based on GCI or cost of sale, or after cost of sale on the bonus?
So these guys don't get paid a bonus. They're generating, and most of what they're doing is generating nurtures. Most of them aren't setting appointments. If they do set appointments, again, we're treating them like 1099 employees. So they work it out with the agent that they set the appointment for, on if the agent wants to share part of their commission. Our agents always do share part of their commission, but it's a deal between the two of them. It's not mandated by the team. But on the traditional model, it's on GCI. So they would get 5% of the 3% commission that the deal had. And it usually comes out of the house side. So it doesn't impact the agent's split if an ISA sets the appointment.
Okay, so another question. A new agent that's looking to get into real estate full time, but still has another job because they need to put food on the table. Which model do you think would be ideal for somebody like that?
I would say if the end goal is for them to become an agent on your team, probably the junior agent model would be the route that I would take them down. When you're looking to hire a traditional ISA, you're looking for someone who wants to stay in that role. Not necessarily stay in that role and stay stagnant, but wants to grow in that role on that side of the business. You're looking for people who don't want to be at the beck and call of clients 24/7, right? Who want that more structured.
Yeah, so they're like systems oriented and they want to stay in the office. They probably don't want to get out there with people. They want to keep their 8 to 5 and all of that. And then the junior agent is more like, I'm getting my feet wet. I'm learning the ropes. This is great training. And one day I'm going to be, you know, a salesperson, right, instead of an inside person. Okay.
Yep, exactly.
And do you always graduate them to both working with buyers and listings, or do you sometimes have one or the other of a focus?
So it depends on how your team is structured. We've done it both ways. We've switched back and forth. So we've played with that a lot. Right now, the way that our team is structured is that they graduate and they're able to do both listings or buyers. But it depends on where you are in your business on what's going to make sense for you. There are some teams where it makes sense at this point in their business to have them only work buyer leads. Totally fine as well.
Okay, and then you did say that the junior agent does circle prospecting, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And circle prospecting, just for definition, is calling around just listeds, just sold, calling around neighborhoods, on streets, asking who they might know or if they want to sell. So that was just a question that we had. And then another question is, you had talked about your shared hopper system. What are you using for that? Do you have a tool that you like? And what is it? Can you just basically describe what that means?
Yeah, I mean, it's it's kind of a monster of a system, so I'll do my best to put it in quickly here. So basically, we use Boomtown. That's the CRM that we use. And basically what we've done is we took almost all the leads away from everybody on the team, right? So we said, agents, you're allowed to keep 100 leads in your pipeline. Our ISAs, now they don't keep any leads in their pipeline. At the time, we let them keep like 20 or 30 people that they were like, no, I can definitely set an appointment with these people. But now they don't keep any leads in their pipeline. Everything goes, all of our nurture leads, which nurtures, just to make sure we have a definition for that, nurtures are people that are motivated to sell within 1 year. They are open to working with you as an agent, so you have an opportunity to earn their business. And you have basically valid contact information, right, and a time to follow up with them. So those are kind of our criteria for a nurture. All of those types of leads go to this shared hopper system, and basically what it is when I was a lead coordinator, we turned my profile in Boomtown into the hopper profile. So all of our nurtures live in that database or in that under that profile. And when they come up for follow-up, they're loaded into Mojo. And the way that our agent team works is every day the agent team comes in, they plug on their headset, and they pick the list that they want to dial in, which our hopper lists are set up in Mojo every morning based on the tasks that are due in that shared pipeline each day. So there'll be tasks that are due today. There will be tasks that were due yesterday or for the past, say, 15 to 20 days that we haven't been able to get in touch with that person yet based on their follow-up time. And so there'll be the hopper today, the hopper past due, and then we split them up by buyers and sellers. So there's like a hopper today buyer, a hopper today seller, and so on. And then there's also like an archive list for people that have made it through our conversion process that we didn't get in touch with again, right? So they've gone through the hopper list and we weren't able to get in touch with them, and now they live in an archive list where we're still calling them, say, once a week to try to get them re-engaged. So there's a few different lists that live there in the hopper, and all of leads are shared. So the agents come in, they plug on their headsets, and they get to work calling through those lists. Every day they make it through those lists at least once, sometimes twice. And if we start to notice that the agents are making it through all of the lists every day, then we know that we need to add more leads to the pipeline. If our agent team is unable to make it through those call lists on a daily basis, then organically we know it's time to grow our agent team. It's time to add more agents because our agents are clearly overwhelmed. They aren't being able to do the prospecting that they're required to do each day. So that's, in a nutshell, how it works.
That's great information. Thank you. You answered many different questions in that. So
cool. Okay, are there any more questions?
One last question. How do you feel about VA, virtual assistant, for this?
So VAs can be effective. Especially with your circle prospecting, where a lot of it is just, filtering through all the people that are going to say no in order to get to that one yes in 1 in 40 contacts or 1 in 30 or 40 contacts, right? So a VA can be especially effective in that scenario. VAs, I wouldn't typically recommend for working, say, inbound leads, being, the first point of contact for your team, or your tougher conversations like expireds and FSBOs. That's a tough place for VAs to be successful. But for circle prospecting, I think it can be a really effective way. In fact, the Ohio group right now is using basically the ISAs, the traditional ISAs that we have, work our inbound leads and expireds and FSBOs, and then we have a team of VAs that are actually doing this more labor-intensive work, doing the circle prospecting and neighborhood calling.
Great.
Yeah.
I think we're good to go.
Okay, perfect. All right, let's move on. So next, we're going to talk about recruiting. So recruiting ISA talent. This is probably the third most common question I get is where do you find ISAs? How do I find these people? And I think some of it is like limiting beliefs, especially if you don't prospect yourself. The idea that nobody ever wants to do this kind of work is something that you need to get over, right? There are some people that love this kind of work, that really thrive in these kinds of roles. So the first step is to get over the fact that maybe you feel bad about trying to get someone to call all day or things like that. There are people that are really good at this and will jump at the opportunity for it. So first of all, kick out any negative mindset you have around prospecting or having someone on the phones working for you every day. The best place that we have found for recruiting is definitely from our sphere. So Tim's sphere, my sphere, our team's sphere, anybody on your team. Everybody on your team, if you have a team of people right now, they are advocates for your team. They are recruiters. Every person on your team, you should consider a recruiter for your team. That's the way I was recruited to the team. I went to high school with one of our buyer agents, and he was like, you've got to get on this rocket ship. And it took him, several months of trying to convince me to send over my resume. And finally I did it just to get him off my back. And it, obviously it's like the best thing that ever happened. And at the same time, he was adamant that this team I needed to be a part of. And it was fantastic. I think Tim talked about it at Career Visioning a couple of months ago. He talked about the fact that I think he said 75% of his team can be traced back to like 4 or 5 people, 4 or 5 key relationships that he has. 75% of the people that are on his team, which the team is probably 75 to 80 people now, can be traced back to these 5 core relationships. So incredible use of that recruiting from your team is a really good place to do it.
Did they give an incentive to the person who brings the agent on?
Yeah, so we've worked on that before. We've tried to do it, but really we didn't really ever have to, right? Because when your culture is really strong and you treat your people right, they do it without having to have any incentive. You can absolutely, throw them some incentives for doing that. Maybe they get a small override on that person's production or something like that, which would be cool, right? Some passive income to bring in. And at the same time, I have not found that it's necessary. And if you don't have the culture or treating your people really, really well, then it doesn't matter what incentives you offer, they won't do it anyway. So you really just want to have those raving fans. And if you want to incentivize them on the back end, great. If not, then it probably won't help. The key fact is making sure that your culture is really strong and you're treating your people really well.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So weak ties. I mentioned weak ties here. Weak ties are people that not necessarily are in your sphere, but that are in the sphere of the people that you do know, right? So on like LinkedIn, it would be like your secondary connections, people that know someone who know you. Those are typically your best hires, because what happens is sometimes when you hire people that you know directly, it can be challenging to work with those people and to hold them accountable and to do things like that. So I usually try to recommend not hiring people that are like your best friends from college, or someone that is your friend's son or your friend's daughter or things like that. It can be challenging when you get into situations like that, right? So go the extra mile, do the extra work to really dig into your network and see who you can find that's outside of the people that are right next to you, just because it can be a little bit more of a healthy relationship. Past clients are a great way to find people for your team, including ISAs. So one of the scripts that we've used when we call our past clients is, hey, our real estate team is growing, right? That's a great conversation to have with your past clients. Thank you for your business because you've helped us along the way. Who do you know that might be a good fit for this role? And, a lot of times what you're doing is you're not really trying to find out if they know anybody. Really, you're asking them if they might be looking for a career change themselves. Because what they're going to do when you say, who do you know that might be looking for a career change? Well, what about me? I might be looking for a career change, right? Why aren't you thinking about me? So that's a really good place to go for recruiting, is working your past clients. Obviously, another script to use would be, I really enjoyed working with you. I thought we had a really great relationship, and I would like to know people who know you because you're the type of person that I would be looking forward to go into business with. And so that's a nice conversation to have with people. Obviously, you're not going to do that with clients that it didn't go so well with, or you didn't have a good relationship with. But your past clients that you really enjoyed is a good conversation to have. And then your strategic alliances, right? So they talk about this in career visioning a lot, right? About finding some people in your network that meet with a lot of people that might be good candidates, right? So your market center TL is a great place to go. Your productivity coach at your market center, your title company, your lender, all of those vendor relationships that you have, especially if they do a lot of business with other agents in the community. They're a really great place to source relationships from. And then you can also look at HR professionals in the area. So sometimes, we've had strategic alliances with other companies, so technology firms that we might partner with for our email marketing that hire inside salespeople. And so maybe if they're not an exact fit for that role, they'll send us people that might work out for us, or people that just don't work out in their roles. They'll send over for us to interview if they think that they're good candidates. So those are places where you can often find some strategic alliance there. And then one of the most creative ways is reverse searching Indeed or LinkedIn. So I want to caution you to not just throw up a job description or a job posting on Indeed or LinkedIn or Craigslist and expect to get really high quality candidates. Usually when you get people that come to you, they're seeking employment because they don't have a job currently. That's not recruiting. That's a really kind of lackadaisical way to go about it. I prefer to be a lot more proactive and go after the people that I want instead of just letting whoever come into me. You can get into a situation when you are just letting candidates roll in, where they'll say what sounds good. They'll even sometimes manipulate their DISC profiles because DISC is easily manipulatable. And sometimes you can think that you're hiring someone that's solid, and they're really not, because they're just desperate to find employment. So what I recommend is, if you're going to use Indeed and LinkedIn, which I highly recommend that you get on there and make a presence, that you're reverse searching it, right? So you're looking for keywords in searches through resumes. So you're looking for words like prospecting or sales or marketing or systems, or some of the keywords that can come up in outgoing or people oriented. Those kinds of search results will help you kind of narrow down some candidates, and then you go after them. Basically, you can invite them to apply for your position, and then if they think it's a good fit, then they can apply. It's kind of like an online dating thing, right? Like, I'm swiping right on you, are you going to swipe right on me, right? So those kinds of things, that can be a really good way to utilize those tools without being kind of doing it the lazy way, where you're just letting them roll into you.
Perfect. What happens if a junior agent leaves your team? How do you protect your leads or nurtures?
So it's going to happen, right? So from time to time, obviously it happens. We actually don't give our junior agents access to our database for that very reason. Especially,
that's why they're just making circle prospecting calls.
Right. We don't give them, and because we want to protect the integrity of our database, and we're having a virtual assistant monitor the nurtures that they send in. So basically what we do is we have them fill out a Google form that submits their nurture. It's got all the criteria that they're supposed to hit for the nurture. They submit that Google form, and then the VA checks it, and if everything checks out, then they add it to the database. The VA is actually the one adding it to the database under like my login, my profile. So we don't actually give them rights to our database until they either get really close to graduating or graduate from our program.
Okay, that's a great example or explanation. Perfect.
Yep, absolutely.
Do you have any samples of ads for job postings or ISAs?
I probably could get my hands on some. I haven't been recruiting on the junior agent side for quite some time now, but I probably could get my hands on some and send them over to you, Amy. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's keep going. This is great information.
Perfect. Okay. So hiring ISA talent. I'm going to assume that most people are KW. If you're not, you should be. So, and if you want to sign up, you just let me know. Okay. So if you're hiring and you're with KW, the KPA is an amazing tool, right? So this is the replacement for the APA. They did a great job with working this, and the JARs are fantastic for evaluating if a candidate's got a good going to be a good fit for the
So this
role.
is the personality profile, seeing if they're detail oriented or if they're results oriented and all of that.
Exactly. So I highly recommend going through career visioning training if you haven't already, the 30, 60, 90-day plans, especially for the ISA role. It's pretty structured, right? It's are you meeting these expectations or are you not? And every 30 days we're evaluating whether or not you get to keep your job, right? If you're making improvements toward these expectations or you're not. Gary says, hire slow, fire fast. And that's definitely something that you want to look at when you're hiring ISAs. If you get someone in who's really not making progress toward their goals and not improving, you want to make that decision quickly, because this is a long-term investment. And if you're seeing those leading indicators going the right direction, great. If you're not seeing those leading indicators go the right direction, you need to make a change really quickly, because you can spend a lot of money on a person and equipment and tools that don't pay off for you. So really evaluating as you're going through the process is important, and that 30, 60, 90-day plan gives you a very structured way to do that. So I highly recommend going through career visioning, the 30, 60, 90-day classes. KPA is an amazing tool. Like I said, you can also use the DISC. What we found is that DISC profiles can absolutely be manipulated. It's not hard to manipulate the results on a DISC profile. If I wanted to come up as an SC, I can absolutely do that. When you're hiring salespeople, they know what a salesperson is supposed to look like, right? So it's easy to manipulate a DISC. It's a lot harder to manipulate the KPA. There are a lot of checks and balances to make sure that it's not easily manipulated. So validating the KPA is really important. Don't just run a KPA on someone and not go through the process of validating it, especially younger people. When you are hiring ISAs, a lot of people want to hire millennials. That's fantastic. Millennials are a great place to start with this position. However, a lot of times their KPAs can come up a little wonky, or they may not validate, because a lot of times millennials or younger people in general just they haven't really come into themselves yet, right? They don't really know themselves all that well. They may think they show up differently than they actually do. And so that can be a challenge if you're just looking at the KPA and not actually validating it with someone. So you always want to go through that extra step of validating, especially when you're hiring youngsters. The comprehensive interview, obviously really important, making sure that you're getting the life story, understanding what really motivates someone by getting the book, right? Going through that whole process, and checking references, right? So I'm a super high D. It kills me to like make 5 phone calls to check one reference and then dig 3 layers deep and get several references based on that person. And yet it's something that I have absolutely learned is really, really important. So check your references. You're basically looking for someone who's strong in those top 3 categories. So you're looking for someone who's high on assertiveness, looking for someone who's got rapid problem solving, and who is high on vocabulary. Now, you can imagine why these things are important, right? Vocabulary is going to tell you how quickly they can pick up on a script, right? How quickly they can learn a new idea, a new way of speaking, new words, new concepts, right? So vocabulary is really important. Rapid problem solving, I think, is probably the most important piece of this, because you really want someone who's going to be quick on their feet, someone who can take an objection and take a second and come out with something that makes sense, right? Even if they've never heard the objection before, right? So that's going to be really important, is to have that rapid problem solving, and you can validate for that in your interview process. Sorry, my dog's like going crazy back here. And then assertiveness, right? This is just to me, this is about, are you willing to just go for it, right? To just get on the phone and not put it off, not have that procrastination of picking up the phone and making that phone call, right? So just someone who's just going to put their head down and go for it, right? So those top 3 things are really, really important. Obviously, there are some other important pieces. I tend to, especially if you're hiring someone to work inbound leads, the sociability piece, I'd like to see a little bit higher on this scale. This one was for inbound sales. Personally, I'd like to see the JAR be a little bit higher on sociability on these. So if you have someone that's a little bit outside of that sociability range on the high side, I think that's a-okay, just as a caveat to the JAR that's on here. But overall, you're looking for assertiveness, rapid problem solving, and vocabulary.
And this is basically the same set of skills for both the junior agent and the ISA, right? You're looking for the same basic stuff.
Yeah, and you may run the junior agents against like a buyer agent role for the KPA, just to understand, to make sure that the ultimate fit is going to be a really good fit for them. So I would definitely recommend running it against the ISA and the buyer agent role if you're going to bring them on as a buyer agent or listing agent, depending on what.
Yeah. And just to be clear, all of this stuff is taught in the new version of Recruit Select, which is called Career Visioning. And this is available to anyone, whether you're with KW or not. You have access to take these courses over and over and over again. All of this stuff are tools in there that you can learn how to check references and what a comprehensive interview looks like. You can, even if you're not with KW, you can probably find a way to get a KPA run. Is that correct? That was one of the questions. What if you're not with KW? And KPA is, what does that stand for? That's a personality assessment. So is there a way to do that if you're not with KW?
I'm not totally sure. I would check with the market center that's in your area. They probably can do it. It's probably going to be a lot more expensive than if you were with KW. And still, I'm sure that you could have it done. Yeah.
Do they charge for it if you are with KW?
They do. I think for our market center, I think every market center is different depending on the deal that they work out with their agents. Our market center charges like $15 per KPA, so it's really cheap.
That's great. I remember the AVA, which was the previous, was a few $100, right?
$150, yeah. So
yeah.
So Keller basically took the AVA and made their own with it, and so it's proprietary to Keller now. So yeah.
Great. And then again, the proprietary part is they're scoring people against typical real estate agent roles. So, you know, me being a high D, I'm probably not going to score very well on an admin role, right? And an admin type person with an SC is probably not going to score very well on a salesperson role. So that's what we're saying when we're saying, how do they pair against some of the typical roles that you're looking to fill?
Right. And if you are using the DISC profile, that's totally fine. You're looking for a high D, high I. So either one of those leading is fine. You're going to struggle a little bit more with your S and your C personality characteristics in this role. Perfect.
All right, we can move on.
All right. Okay, so tools for your ISA. You're going to want to have a CRM because basically you're going to be inspecting your results. So if you're just getting started and you don't have a CRM that you're using, I would highly recommend having something that can track. When did they make the first call? How long did it take them to respond to that lead? How many leads are they putting in every day, right? So because you're going to want to be reporting on all of these metrics, and a CRM is really going to help you do that. So I mentioned Boomtown. That's what we've used for a long time. I've had a lot of success with Commissions Inc., Follow Up Boss, Salesforce, Infusionsoft, all really solid options. Keller Williams actually has their program as well, eEdge, I think it's called, right? Which at least if you don't have anything else, use the free tool that's available through your brokerage. I would definitely recommend having a CRM. Headsets are a must in a busy office, right? So you want to get some noise canceling headsets. So you're looking for something that's got a really good microphone with noise canceling. Boom headsets, BOOM headsets, have definitely been a key for us. We've used them a lot in the past, and there are a lot of different options out there, but that's probably the one that I find has worked the best for noise canceling. And then data, you're going to want to make sure you have numbers for your ISAs to call, right? So Vulcan 7, clearly you guys are Vulcan 7 members, is a great place. It's the best place for expired and FSBO data. Since you're already members, you know that you don't need to go anywhere else for expired and FSBO data. And then Coal Resource Directory would be a good place if you're going to have people circle prospecting. So that's a place where you can get a lot of numbers really quickly for your circle prospecting, but they don't do really specialization, any kind of specialized list. It's really kind of blanket, pull an area down and call around that area. And then a power dialer, which is optional. Obviously, Vulcan has a dialer option where you can dial one line at a time, which is fantastic. If you're going to do circle prospecting, most agents will use a power dialer like Mojo so they can do triple line dialing, which is just more effective when you're doing that labor-intensive work. So those would be my recommendations for tools for your ISAs.
Great. And then one other thing is Vulcan 7 is really, from what I understand, the only product that is ISA ready to plug in with multiple team members.
Yeah, I mean, and the fact that it has the dialer built in with the data right there, it just makes it really easy to plug and play an ISA for sure. The dialer functionality built in is a really cool tool, and you can work it with multiple profiles. So yes, absolutely.
Great. All right, I think we're good.
Okay, so this is my last piece, and something that's near and dear to my heart because, like I said at the beginning of the call, I find that a lot of teams add an ISA to the mix, and sometimes they don't really know how to treat that role, how to train to it, how to hold it accountable, and how to keep it really motivated and happy, right? So a lot of agents I find will hire an ISA. They'll put them in an office by themselves. Maybe they even let them work from home. And ISAs can end up feeling really isolated and on an island. And so what I really want to recommend is that if you're going to bring on an ISA, just like you would with an assistant or any other team member, you're going to want to invest in them as far as their training and your time and holding them accountable to achieving their goals, right? So really being able to connect their personal financial goals with the vehicle that is the job that they've taken with you and your team. That's the most important step. So when you're training an ISA, the method that we use is an I do it, we do it, you do it process, right? So you're going to take them through probably a week training. I really recommend getting them on the phone as quickly as possible. So as soon as they feel like, okay, I want to make that call, get them on. Don't put prospecting on a pedestal. Don't make it this big scary thing that, no, you have to know your script exactly before you get on. The best way to do it is to just get in the role and start doing it. That's the most effective way to learn. So I do it. You're going to do it with them. You're going to do it while they watch you for the first day, maybe day and a half until they feel comfortable. Sometimes you're going to have to give them a little push and say, okay, it's your turn. You're going to get on now. And then they're going to take a call and you're going to take a call. And they're going to take a call and you're going to take a call. You're going to do it together. And then you're going to let them do it by themselves where you're just standing back and making sure that things are running smoothly, right? So that should happen over about the course of a week. It needs to be really intensive though, right? So it's not just making the phone calls, it's also them learning the script. So they're spending any time that you're not available to prospect with them, learning their script, internalizing it, memorizing it 100%. They should be able to start in any place in that script and roll with it. I mean, to the extent that you would learn lines in a play. If you're about to have to go on stage and deliver these lines to an audience of 1,000 people, that's how well you want your ISA to know that script. And that's the pressure that they should feel in order to really achieve that kind of mastery of it. And you want that script memorized within the first 30 days. It really needs to happen within the first week, right? They're not super complicated scripts. It needs to happen as fast as possible, but definitely within the first 30 days. So I say self-driven here. We talked about that, especially with the junior agent model. You want them reaching out to that lead agent to test out of the buyer presentation. You want them scheduling showings and scheduling their own open houses. You don't want to have to push that kind of that kind of drive onto them. And then what are we tracking? This is important. So we're going to track dial time because we want to know that they're putting in the effort. We want to track the number of dials. Again, this is an effort metric. Contacts to make sure that our data looks good and to make sure that we're staying on the same page as far as how we disposition a call. Meaning, do we call this a contact or do we call this a no contact? And what are the differences between those conversations? What does that look like? And then we're also going to be tracking appointments, obviously, right? That's our end goal. But it's really important to make sure that you're tracking the activity that leads to that end goal and also looking at the ratios between these things. So especially between dials and contacts to appointments. So you're looking at your ratios between those three different categories in order to understand what your conversion rates are, so that you can understand, how well your ISA is doing, not just from an effectiveness standpoint, which is, are they just doing the work, but also from an efficiency standpoint, which is where you're understanding how efficient they actually are when they're doing the work.
And then they can see that they're getting better as they internalize. What tool do you use to track that?
So, we've used a lot of different methods. One of the best tools out there is CTE. It's a fantastic tool.
What is that?
CTE, I don't remember exactly what it stands for, but you can, if you Google it, CTE Keller Williams, you should be able to find it. It's
okay.
T is in cat, T is in Tom, E is in Emery. That's my kid's name. So, but yeah, definitely using something like CTE or just a spreadsheet that just simply tracks how many dials did you do today? What was your dial time? How many contacts did you make? How many nurtures did you get? How many appointments did you set? Those are the important things to be tracking. And typically my full-time ISAs are looking at about 6 hours on the dialer, 1 hour of admin, so maybe a 30-minute admin in the morning and a 30-minute admin in the afternoon, and then 1 hour for training and breaks. And then, of course, their lunch break is also included there. And then the 411 is really the best tool that I've used for one-on-one conversations, because, again, you want to link their personal financial goals to the vehicle that is the job that they have in the moment, right? So how do we link my personal financial goals with my success in this role? That's the key to motivating most of the people in these types of roles, or really any role in your organization. And the 411 is a really strong tool to let you do that. So you can get that on KW Connect. It's pretty readily available. And then providing additional training and growth opportunities for your team. This is retention. This is what it's all about. So the reason that I joined Keller Williams, the reason that I joined Tim's team, is because immediately I saw the fact that training was such a huge piece, and that I would be pushed to grow outside of, just my normal, like, this is what I'm expected to do in my job, right? So I was exposed to KW events. Tim took me to family reunion my first year as an ISA on the team, which is fantastic. I'm seeing more and more ISAs and admins go to these Keller Williams events. I think that's a fantastic opportunity, and one that shows an investment in your team. Quantum Leap, especially for your youngsters, if you're hiring younger in their 20s, those types of opportunities can be amazing for them. Bold is obviously one that I would put ISAs agents through. And then, of course, we have ISA coaching, right, which is the program that we run.
Perfect.
All right.
Is that your last slide?
That's it. Well,
yeah, so tell us about the coaching. So, by the way, there was a comment. Can we listen to this recording again? This is a really good webinar. Yes, everybody that's on or that registered will get a copy of this tomorrow, and you can watch it 1,000 times if you want. And then just if you need further help, Sarah talked about a lot of different tools and programs that KW offers to really kind of help you build your team and your business. And she has created this ISA coaching program that so how does it work? Does the lead agent become a part of it, or is it just the ISA? Or tell us a little bit how that works and how that can help me as a person wanting to have an ISA.
Yeah, so it's for your whole team. And, we call it ISA training or ISA coaching. Realistically, that's just a sexy name that gets people's attention, right? ISA is kind of a buzzword in the industry. Realistically, this is good for anybody. We should probably call it like conversion training or conversion coaching, because it's really for anybody who wants to increase their conversion rates. So the program is basically it's really weekly group calls. So we do a webinar series group calls where we're going over everything from, how to close in the buyer script to big systems like the Hopper system that I talked about, and how to really implement that on your team. We talk on a micro level as well as really a macro systems level. So there's really something for everyone in those group calls. And that group calls, anybody on your team can be on that call, which is cool because you don't have to pay multiple subscriptions to have multiple team members on the call. And then we also have an individual portion of the coaching as well, which is really interesting. It's the first program in MAPS that's this hybrid between group and mastery. So we do basically breakthrough coaching as far as it's 2 coaching sessions per month with one of our individual coaches, our one-on-one coaches, which is 2 30-minute sessions on an individual basis where you're working through role plays, or you're working through accountability metrics, or you're working through this new system that you're trying to implement. And so those one-on-ones can be taken by whoever on your team is the person that's going to be responsible for implementing those types of things. That might be the rainmaker. That might be a lead agent on the team, or that might be a lead ISA, or that could be an ISA, or it could be a virtual assistant. So we coach people in all different walks of the roles on the team that have to do with sales and prospecting and the sales funnel and building that conversion cycle. And then we also have we have monthly Rainmaker or leadership mastermind calls where our leadership that are involved in the course will get on a call and just talk through some of the challenges that can come up when you're implementing a prospecting culture or a culture of accountability on your team, or handoffs and relationships between an ISA team and an agent team. So it's really a cool place for our community to come together and talk about these things. It's on rolling enrollment, so there's never like a good time or a better time to sign up. You can sign up at any point. You'll just start the next month. And like I said, it's not like a traditional group course where it's like 16 weeks on and then we start with a new course. It's really a community. So most of the people that are in our program, we have about 75 teams or individual agents that have signed up, and most of them have been in the program for more than a year. It's a year-long contract, but it's a community that we're building, and it's a community that hasn't really existed until now. Like I said, ISAs can often feel really isolated, and so this is a nice way to provide a instant community for your ISA if that's something that that you want to pursue.
And your whole team can be a part of it.
Yep.
That's great. Can you just remind us what the headset brand is that you recommended again?
Boom. B-O-O-M. B as in boy, O-O-M.
Okay, I just typed that in the chat if anybody wants to see that. And then also you mentioned CTE before. That's Commitment to Excellence.
That's it.
Somebody else helped us with that. Ricky helped us with that. Here you see the link to the MAPS coaching /ISA. So that's where you can find more information about that. Again, as I said in the beginning, if you have additional suggestions as to what topics we should be covering, this was a great topic suggestion, and Sarah was an amazing presenter, answering tons of questions, just getting really great feedback on the chat. If you have any suggestions, just reach out to us at sales@vulcan7.com. This is being recorded. You will see this tomorrow in your email, and rest assured, all of Sarah's information is going to be in there if you want to sign up for this coaching. If you have any other questions, it was excellent. Thank you so much. This was just a great hour of time that gave us a thorough understanding of what is available and how the different options are. So thank you. Do you have any closing remarks?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. And this is something I'm really, really passionate about. So if anybody has questions, I'm absolutely willing to do like a 30-minute consultation just to talk shop. It's, like I said, something that I get pretty excited about. So if you would like a consultation, you can email me at Sarah with an H, mapscoach@gmail.com.
I'm typing that in.
Perfect. And I'm happy to schedule a consultation with you to talk more specifically about anybody who has questions.
Perfect. And that's Sarah with an H, mapscoach@gmail.com. If you would like to talk with Sarah more about ISA stuff and converting better. Yeah. All right, Sarah, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Yeah,
and I hope that everybody got a lot out of this call, and it's just going to blow it up the rest of the year.
Happy prospecting.
Thanks again, Sarah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.